We're counting down the top 10 wildest ways invasive species are rewriting the map of Appalachia right now. The mountains look timeless from the highway. The ridges roll out in green waves and the creeks run clear. It feels like a system that never changes. But that view is a trick. If you step off the pavement and look closer at the leaves, the soil, and the water, a different story is happening. Tiny biology is moving millions of tons of earth. Insects smaller than a grain of rice are shutting down power plants. Vines are swallowing entire valleys in a single season. This isn't about nature just doing its thing. It is about new players changing the rules of the game. These 10 entries track the biggest shifts happening in the woods today. We are talking about invisible chemical warfare in the soil. We are talking about bugs that liquefy fruit from the inside out. We are talking about roots strong enough to crack your home's foundation. The number one spot goes to a plant that uses floods to spread and concrete to hide. It is a landscaping nightmare that is still expanding today. Let's begin with number 10. Fact number 10. The beetle that replaced the natives. It looks like a normal backyard bug. You see a red shell and black spots, and you think nothing of it. But the lady beetles swarming your porch this fall are likely not the ones that belong there. Evidence shows a massive shift has happened across the region. The Asian lady beetle has taken over, and the native species have quietly faded into the background. It feels like a simple swap, but the mechanics behind it are brutal. These invaders act differently. Studies suggest they lay more eggs, and they lay them earlier in the season. That speed matters. It means their larvae hatch first and eat the aphids that native beetles need. The result is a food desert for the locals. But it gets wilder. Research reveals that these invaders often carry a parasitic fungus. It doesn't hurt them, but it can be deadly to native beetles. So just by showing up, they bring a biological weapon that clears the field. You might notice they bite, which native ladybugs rarely do. You might notice they smell bad when crushed, but the real change is in the numbers. Surveys in some areas show the invader making up 9 out of 10 beetles seen. That's insane. A whole population flipped while we were just looking at the colors. And it is still happening today. They survive winter by hiding in your walls, ready to flood out again in spring. Fact number 9. The bug that liquefies fruit. You expect a pest to chew a hole. You see a bite mark and you know something is wrong. But the brown marmorated stink bug doesn't chew, it drinks. This insect uses a mouth part that works like a needle. It pierces the skin of an apple, a peach, or a soybean pod. Then it injects digestive enzymes into the plant. Those enzymes turn the solid tissue inside into liquid. The bug sucks out the slurry and moves on. The surface of the fruit might look fine for days, but inside, the flesh turns corky and mealy. It is a hidden bruise that only shows up when you take a bite. That hidden damage causes massive financial hits. In 2010 alone, reports describe about $37 million in apple losses just in the mid-Atlantic. That is the GDP of a small town vanished in one season. The menu makes it worse. This bug feeds on over 100 plant species. It moves from woods to cornfields to orchards. It treats the entire landscape like a buffet. And here's the thing. It hides in plain sight during winter. It finds shelter in houses and barns, waiting out the cold. Then it emerges to start the cycle again. It is a stealth operation that is still destroying harvests right now. Fact number 8, the sticky mold nightmare. A vine looks wet in the middle of a dry week. That shine isn't water, it is waste. The spotted lanternfly drinks massive amounts of sugary sap from trees and grapes. It takes what it needs and shoots the rest out as a sticky goo called honeydew. This honeydew rains down on everything below. It coats leaves, patios, and cars. Then the real problem starts. A fungus called sooty mold grows on the sugar. The result is a black, tar-like layer that covers the plant. This mold blocks sunlight. Without sun, the leaves can't make food. So the plant gets hit twice. It loses its lifeblood to the bug, and then it starves in the dark under the mold. The stakes are huge for vineyards. Research notes that heavy infestations can cut grape yields by 90%. That is basically a total loss. And this bug isn't picky. It feeds on over 70 types of plants, including maples and walnuts. It swarms in huge numbers, covering tree trunks like a living carpet. What's wild is how the stress lingers. A tree drained of sap in autumn might not survive the winter. The damage stacks up year after year, and right now, in infested counties, that sticky rain is still falling. Fact number 7, the plant that poisons soil. You walk through a spring forest and see a patch of green plants with small white flowers. It looks like a nice ground cover, but garlic mustard is actually waging chemical warfare on the dirt itself. This invasive herb doesn't just crowd out wildflowers. It changes the biology of the forest floor. The plant produces chemicals that seep into the soil. Evidence suggests these chemicals attack mycorrhizal fungi. These are the microscopic fungal threads that connect to tree roots. They help native trees and plants drink water and find nutrients. When garlic mustard kills the fungi, it cuts the supply line for the natives. Tree seedlings struggle to grow. Native flowers fade away. The forest floor turns into a ghost town where only garlic mustard thrives. It gets crazier. The plant is a biennial, meaning it has a 2-year life cycle. But its seeds can stay alive in the soil for 10 years. That is a decade of backup troops waiting in the mud. So even if you pull every plant you see, the patch can come back. It creates a ghost floor effect where the woods look green, but the diversity is gone. It is a slow-motion takeover that is still silencing spring blooms today. Fact number 6. The shells that clog lakes. We used to think cold mountain water was safe. We thought invasive mussels needed warm, lowland lakes, but zebra mussels broke that rule. These tiny mollusks are the size of a fingernail, but they breed in numbers that are hard to comprehend. A single female can release 1 million eggs a year. When those larvae settle, they don't just sit there, they glue themselves down. They use strong fibers called byssal threads to anchor onto rock, steel, and concrete. Then they stack on top of each other. The result is a rock-hard layer that can get feet thick. This is a disaster for pipes. Water intake pipes for power plants and water systems act like magnets for them. The mussels line the inside of the pipe, shrinking the opening. A wide tunnel turns into a narrow straw. Pumps have to work harder, flow drops, and then, without warning, the system trips offline. What's wild is how they change the water itself. They filter feed so aggressively that they strip the plankton out of the lake. The water gets crystal clear. That looks pretty from the dock, but it means the food chain is broken. Young fish starve because their food is gone, and deep down, the pipes are still closing up right now in reservoirs we thought were too cold to fail. Fact number 5, the bulldozers with tusks. A forest floor is supposed to be a sponge. Layers of leaves and moss soak up rain and release it slowly. But feral hogs turn that sponge into a slip and slide. These animals look like barnyard pigs, but they act like machines. They root it through the soil to find food, using their snouts to flip over heavy mats of leaves in the earth. A group of hogs can churn up acres of ground in a single night. They leave behind bare, exposed dirt. When rain hits that bare dirt, it doesn't soak in. It runs off. The result is instant erosion. Mud pours into creeks, choking out fish habitats. Steep slopes lose their grip and slide downhill, and it destroys the plants that hold the woods together. Hogs eat roots, bulbs, and seedlings. They destroy the seed bank that the forest needs to regenerate. Rare mountain plants get wiped out in a week. Invasive weeds rush into the disturbed soil. The whole system flips from a stable forest to a muddy, eroding mess. It is still happening today in hollows and creek bottoms. You might not see the pigs, but you can see the scars they leave. The ground looks like a rototiller went through it, and the mud is still flowing downstream. Fact number 4. The vine that eats South Kudzu looks like a green blanket draped over the trees. It seems peaceful. But underneath it is a game of speed and weight. This vine grows incredibly fast. In peak season, measurements show it can extend a foot per day. That is like watching a plant move in real time. It climbs trees, telephone poles, and abandoned buildings. Its weapon is shade. Kudzu leaves act like solar panels that track the sun. They create a roof so thick that almost no light reaches the ground. Everything beneath it starves and dies. But the real secret is underground. You can cut the vine, but the root crown remains. This massive woody root stores energy like a buried fuel tank. It can survive drought, fire, and lawnmowers. As soon as you turn your back, the energy in the root pushes up new shoots. It also fixes nitrogen in the soil, which helps it grow even faster in poor dirt. The weight of the vines can snap tree branches and pull down power lines. It physically breaks the forest while starving it of light. It is a relentless engine of growth that is still swallowing field edges right now. Fact number 3, the invisible tree, killer ash. Trees are everywhere in the Appalachians. They line the hiking trails and shade the creeks, but millions of them are standing dead, and the killer is hard to see. The emerald ash borer is a metallic green beetle, but the adult beetle isn't the main problem. The problem is the larvae. They live under the bark. They chew S-shaped tunnels through the living tissue of the tree. This tissue is the pipeline that moves water and nutrients. As the larvae carve their tunnels, they cut the pipeline. It is like strangling the tree from the inside. The tree tries to heal, but it can't keep up. The scary part is the delay. A tree can be infested for years before it looks sick. Then suddenly, the top branches die. The canopy thins, and within a few years, the whole tree snaps. This beetle has killed hundreds of millions of ash trees. It changes the forest mix forever. When the ash trees die, gaps open in the canopy. Sunlight hits the ground, drying out the soil and heating up streams. It is a landscape-level disaster caused by a bug you might never see. And the larvae are still chewing through the survivors today. Fact number 2, the loss of cool shade. Hemlock trees are the air conditioners of the mountains. They grow in deep ravines and along streams, creating a dark, cool microclimate. But a tiny insect called the hemlock woolly adelgid is turning that off. It looks like white cotton fluff stuck to the twigs. This pest inserts a straw-like mouth into the base of the needles. It sucks out the tree's stored starches. It drains the energy the tree was saving for the future. The tree responds by dropping its needles. It stops growing new ones. Slowly, the deep green canopy turns gray and thin. The result is a heat wave in the hollows. Without the hemlock shade, sunlight strikes the stream water. Water temperatures rise. Brook trout, which need cold water, lose their habitat. The soil dries out. The mosses and ferns that need the damp gloom die off. It is an ecosystem collapse driven by an insect that doesn't even move for most of its life. It just sits there, drains the tree, and changes the temperature of the forest. And it is still happening right now, leaving gray skeletons across the ridges. Fact number 1, The concrete breaking root. The number one spot goes to Japanese knotweed because it fights like a geological force. This isn't just a weed. It is a biological jackhammer. It looks like bamboo, forming dense walls along rivers and roads. But the danger is underground. It has a rhizome system that can extend 20 feet sideways and 7 feet deep. These roots are incredibly strong. They can grow into microscopic cracks in concrete, asphalt, and brick. Then they expand. The hydraulic pressure of the growing root widens the crack. It can crumble foundations, break retaining walls, and ruin driveways. In some places, you can't get a mortgage on a house if this plant is in the yard. And you cannot just dig it out. If you leave a fragment of root the size of a fingernail in the dirt, it can regrow into a whole new plant. It uses the rivers to spread. Floods break off pieces of the stem. Those pieces float downstream, lodge in a new bank, and start a new colony. It replaces the native roots that hold the soil together, which leads to massive bank erosion. It attacks our infrastructure and our rivers at the same time. It is a master of survival that uses our own roads and waterways to conquer ground. And right now, beneath the soil of a quiet creek bank or a cracked driveway, it is pushing forward. These 10 invaders show us that the landscape is not a painting. It is a battlefield. Every red dot on a leaf, every white speck on a branch, and every vine on a wire is part of a massive shift. The mountains are still beautiful, but they are changing fast, and the wildest stuff is happening right under our feet.